yell at me if you wait.
All right, guys, so what you see there is Biden's gas-guzzling motorcade headed to the spot where he gave his speech on climate change and the alleged climate crisis that is currently happening across the globe, and also bash the oil industry, which, you know, is interesting because the oil industry, at least the domestic oil industry, seems to be reluctant to drill more, right? Because of the Biden administration and their rhetoric on climate, okay, and how they're basically telling the fossil fuel industry that your time is going to be up eventually, right? We're going to transition to renewable energy. However, in the near term, that doesn't really seem to be working out, especially along with this alleged climate crisis, in which there has been some energy crisis as a result, particularly in Europe, okay, where they're experiencing a massive heat wave, right? A heat wave that has actually made it more difficult to operate their nuclear power plants, which allegedly have been overheating because of the heat wave, okay? And with heat comes more demand for energy because people are trying to stay cool, right? So it's created kind of a nasty feedback loop in Europe with this alleged climate crisis going on. And that creates an interesting conversation, as it seems that fossil fuels are really the only thing in the near term that can help us efficiently meet the energy demands of the world. However, we have Democrats in the US and a lot of the climate crusaders across the world trying to get off fossil fuels at the same time, but because of the alleged effects of climate change, they actually need fossil fuels in order to meet the demand for energy. Again, it's an interesting feedback loop, okay? And over here in the US, Pete Buttigieg, right, the head of the Department of Transportation, aka the electric vehicles guy, right, electric vehicles at all costs guy, was pressed on this issue of energy or lack thereof during a time in which, you know, people really can't afford not to have energy, especially during these climate / weather related crises.
I have kind of a philosophical question about how we approach things in terms of dealing with emissions and dealing with trying to cut down on the use of fossil fuels, and how we deal with what Europe might be facing. And what I mean by that is there are real possibilities that people might not have air conditioning during a heat wave, or in the winter that they may not have enough energy to heat their homes at this point. Now, the mitigation factors that we're employing to try to cut down on emissions, those really aren't going to cut CO2 emissions till probably 2030. And while we're dealing with these, we've got India building coal plants, we've got China building coal plants, just hand over fist and emitting and not really helping our efforts whatsoever. When wind and solar won't power the homes in Europe, how do we not use hydrocarbons to make sure that near term these people aren't either freezing or dying from the heat? It seems like a real quandary at this point to try to do these, to near term try to do these things when near term we need power, we need energy. So how do you declare,
well, I will say,
how do you declare a climate crisis in the middle of an actual weather crisis?
Well, look, obviously those two things are closely related. I mean, it's more than 100 degrees in London today, or at least it was yesterday. We've seen things happen in the Pacific Northwest in the U.S. that are supposed to be basically all but statistically impossible, and they're happening more and more often. But this is what a transition looks like, right? This is exactly the challenge that we're living through. You can't flip a switch. You can't do it overnight.
Yeah, so Pete Buttigieg is basically saying what the Democrat Party thinks, okay, and what the climate crusaders across the world think, which is that this is just what we got to deal with. We just have to deal with a lack of energy because, you know, renewable energy sources have not really caught up, right? They're not all that efficient yet. We just got to deal with it, man. You just got to deal with it, okay? Just, you know, burn up in a heat wave, right? Just burn up in a heat wave or freeze to death, right? Freeze to death when it's wintertime, okay? Again, I think adaptation is probably a better strategy than mitigation at this point, okay? But what do I know, right? I'm just some dude on the internet, okay? But what I really want to talk about here, okay, when it comes to this whole issue, right, and Biden's speech that he gave against the oil industry is an embarrassing but shocking, maybe somewhat not shocking gaffe that he made, in which he basically said that he had cancer because of the oil industry. Take a look.
My mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Yeah, so Biden made a claim there that kind of shocked people, okay, and has went viral, in which it sounded like that he said that he, has cancer, like currently, okay, like present tense, I have cancer, okay, along with so many other people. That's what it sounded like Joe Biden said. I mean, that's exactly what he said. Now, the White House has come out here and tried to clear up that statement and said, no. What Joe Biden actually meant to say is that he had skin cancer in the past. Right? Apparently, Biden had non-melanoma and a bunch of skin cancers, multiple times throughout his lifetime, because apparently he spent a whole lot of time in the sun. Okay, maybe not exactly what Biden was getting at in regards to him getting cancer from the oil industry, but hey, I think that's besides the point. The point is that we have a president of the United States that has come out here and made a gaffe like that, basically saying that he has cancer, and everybody's thinking like, well, it must be his dementia, right? It must be the apparent mental struggles that he is having, right? Which suggests that it is time for this man to step down, right? And that's kind of the point of this video, and what I want to talk about is that Biden has to step down, okay? He got to step down. If I was the Democrats, I would be demanding that he step down, right? Just go ahead and announce that I'm stepping down right after the midterms, right? And before the 2024 primary season. They should do that. That is the only way to essentially save the Democrat Party. Now, with that being said, I want to discuss with you guys something interesting I've been thinking about in regards to this whole thing in Biden's presidency, okay? Because his approval ratings is in the dumps, okay? And I think that Biden, in his mind, believes that he can run again, even though, right, we all know there's no way this man can run again in 2024. But I think that he wants to run again in order to save his legacy, okay? And right now, it seems that the Democrats and Joe Biden are at odds with each other in order to save themselves, okay? And I'm going to tell you guys what I'm talking about, because in order for the Democrats to save themselves, they need to throw Joe Biden on the bus, right? They need to come out here and say, look, this guy's super old. He probably has dementia. We're calling for him to step down. Everything is his fault, right? It's not our fault. It is his fault, right? He had poor leadership. He was a good guy back in the day, but he's just too old, right? Blame everything on his age, okay? That is probably the best way for the Democrats to save themselves, is to throw Joe Biden on the bus, make him resign, okay, or step down, okay, after 2024, and run another candidate, right? Have a clean slate, okay? That is the best way to save themselves at this point. However, Joe Biden, the best way to save himself and his legacy, which is basically going to go down as the worst president in the history of the United States, is to turn on the Democrats and to basically become a Republican. That is what Joe Biden should do at this point, right? I'm so serious. Biden should rewind the clock and go back to his days of being a blue dog Democrat. I'm talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s. Joe Biden, which probably is today's Republican, to be quite honest with you, okay? He should do that, okay? And what I would do if I was Joe Biden. Again, I don't understand why none of his advisors are telling him this, because if I was his advisor, I'd be telling him this. I said, look, forget the Democrats. Forget climate change. Forget all this stuff that the Democrats want you to do, all these progressive priorities. Just be a Republican. In fact, just come out here and say that when it comes to inflation, when it comes to energy, when it comes to the border, I am going to do whatever Republicans want to do, right? So whatever legislation they want to pass, right? So whatever solution they want to come up with for inflation, I am going to pass it, right? I'm going to support it, right? And I'm going to get my Democrat colleagues, the ones like Joe Manchin, okay, the Democrats that are actually somewhat sane in the House as well too, I'm going to get them to get on board with whatever the Republicans want to do, okay? Again, whether it be inflation, energy, the border, right? And particularly for the border, what I would do is fire Alejandro Mayorkas, right? I'll be like, look, this guy has failed. I'm going to fire him, and I'm going to appoint whoever the Republicans want me to appoint, right? I'm going to come together with all the Republicans, and I am going to appoint whoever he wants me to appoint as being in charge of the border, right? And the reason why I'm saying that this could save Joe Biden's legacy and to save his presidency, okay? It'll probably ruin the Democrats. It'll definitely ruin the Democrats. However, the Democrats, they're going to have to turn on him anyway to save themselves. But Joe Biden doing that makes it so if things get better in the future, right, when inflation, subsides, if the border gets better or whatever, it makes it so the Republicans can't really come out here and attack him because essentially Biden has said, I'm going to do it whatever the Republicans want to do. And the Republicans have enough numbers in Congress. They really will have enough numbers in Congress after the midterms to actually make that happen, right? To actually just make it a Republican presidency. If Biden was smart, that's what he should do, right? That's what he should do, okay? Just say, look, the Republicans are running things. So if everything goes well, okay, let's say that inflation subsides, the border gets better. Again, Republicans can't really say anything if they're running it at that point, right? If Biden is saying, look, these guys are in charge of it, he can come out here and say that, look, I abandoned the Democrats and I work with the Republicans to fix inflation and to fix the border, okay? That would save his legacy as a presidency. Now, it would destroy the Democrats, right? But it would save his legacy as a president to say, well, again, I put my political differences aside and work with these guys in order to fix our most pressing issues, right? He also probably should come up with a crime bill as well, too, right? Throw that in there as well, too, okay? On the other hand, if things go to get better, right? Let's say inflation gets worse, gas prices keep going up, the border gets worse, the border doesn't get better. All those things, he can say, look, I worked with the Republicans. I told the Republicans, whatever y'all want to pass, I'm willing to pass it. I will get behind it. I will let you guys basically run the country. If things get worse, he can then either say one or two things. He can say, look, Republicans passed their legislation and it didn't get better. So none of this was my fault because Republicans couldn't even fix it, right? So it wasn't my fault. And two, what he could say is that, well, hey, things got worse because of the Republicans. I tried to work with them. Turns out they didn't have any better ideas or any better plans than we had, right? Again, if Biden was smart, he would just become a full-blown Republican, right? Get rid of all the progressive stuff. Forget about all the Democrat parties. Just be a Republican. And that is the best way to save your legacy. Again, however, the best way for the Democrats to save themselves is to abandon Joe Biden. And the best way for them to do that is basically to declare that Joe Biden has a mental illness, right? Maybe dementia or something like that, and call for the man to resign. All that is to say is that with the way things are looking, I think there's going to be a major Democrat civil war next year in 2023. After the midterms, there will be a massive civil war among the Democrats because a lot of these people are going to be looking to save themselves. There is a political reckoning coming for them. And I'm going to thoroughly enjoy the fireworks. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.